normal people, earth walkers, mere mortals. Reach up to the stars with me. This is Letters to Celebrity. On today's episode, I reach out to funny man Chris Parnell. Dear Chris Parnell, can I have $45? I'm raising money for a hand-foot surgery, which is just like it sounds. I want to trade a foot for a hand. And I know what you're thinking. Won't it be hard to walk around with a hand instead of your foot? But this isn't going to be like a money-counting, lotion-covered hand. It's going to be a big, tough, meaty hand. Like a working man's calloused hand. Like a robot hand. And if it felt weird to walk on your hand, you could put it in a rollerblade. I myself work at a factory working with my hands in the commerce section of Los Angeles. I once heard Tom Waits say it like Los Angeles, although he's not southern, so it was more like Los Angeles, with a gull sound. Maybe because of coastal seagulls, or something like that. Maybe it's because there's a lot of sharp angles in Los Angeles. Remember that book, Jonathan Seagull? Is that book about anything? Was the seagull's name Jonathan? Who names a seagull? And why not a name like Barry or Tanner or Kamachalakafasin? Okay, focus, Chris. At the factory I work at, we make candles and reed diffusers and coffins and birds and dragonflies to feed the birds. That is when the birds wake up early enough to get the flies before all the big fat toads get them with their long, seductive Gene Simmons tongue. Chris, let me ask you a question, man to man, working man to comedic actor. You think Gene Simmons uses that tongue to do anything non-sexual? Like his taxes? Would that work? Could he wrap that thing around a pen and then still have enough tongue slack to keep his eyes situated on the paper while moving the pen around? And or, you think you could walk on it if it were, say, attached to his ankle where a foot would traditionally be? And finally, would having a tongue foot, even one as big as that Simmons monstrosity, be cool? Or would everyone call you a nerd all the time because you're stuck constantly watering your tongue from a big green watering bucket where the shower head part looks like the face of a flower? And yes, Chris, you have to water it so it doesn't dry out. Because tongues want to be in mouths, and mouths are notoriously wet places. The thing is that I am not, nor have I ever been, a liar, okay, Chris? I just fuck up now and again. And I do occasionally lie. But I can still see that look on your face, that iconic, befuddled, the world has its foot on my throat and I'm just gonna take it, but I'm not happy about it kind of look. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Forgive me, Chris. I'm from Ohio, and there was a time 10 years ago when I genuinely thought Alex Jones was a legitimate soothsayer. I do still think 9/11 was an inside job, full disclosure, so I find it troubling when my conspiracy theory guys disgrace themselves. You know what they say, never meet your heroes. Or in this case, don't keep paying attention to people you find interesting because they are going to monumentally fuck up the country. Don't meet your heroes, Chris. And yet, I met you. You see, I used to work at a little single-screen movie theater in West Hollywood, known as the Silent Movie Theater to some and the Cine Family to others. You might know it because you saw a movie there, and/or because it was big in the news for a bit when it was getting shut down. Turned out the place was run by a bunch of creeps and/or predators and/or victims, and I used to work there. I can hear the gears turning in that big brain of yours, Chris. You want to know, was he a creep or a victim? Well, I wasn't running the place, and I was making minimum wage, mopping soda off the floor, serving popcorn, taking out the trash, so I don't think I was one of the creeps in question when they shut the place down a few years after my employment there. But I was often drunk, and I did steal from the register sometimes. One thing you might not know is that when you work for $8 an hour and you have open access to a register, you would be a fool not to give yourself a little raise. But the place was a nonprofit, and at the time, didn't really know it was run exclusively by creeps. So, I guess drunkenly stealing from a nonprofit does kind of make me a creep. And I do still feel a little bad about it. But there's a bunch of stuff I feel bad about that I did when I was a drinking man. And all you can really do when you feel bad about having been a selfish, reckless drunk is continue to feel bad about it forever, while at the same time not drinking alcohol, which is what I do now. But then I drank. You see, besides minimum wage, our benevolent bosses at the Cinefamily, shut down for its sins, known for its cinema. Why do people sin, Chris? Is it because it's exciting to do something wrong? Do we all need a spanking? Anyway, this place used to supply us with free beer while we were on the clock, and this was viewed as pretty cool by me and the rest of the staff, and did tend to make for a sometimes more laid-back, cool atmosphere. Even the working schlubs are catching a buzz. That's how cool this place is. And it was pretty cool, if you didn't have self-control problems. Conversely, after one particularly embarrassing night where I got into the liquor cabinet and don't remember the last few hours of work, I woke up to an email where I was told that I was way too drunk at work, and should it happen again, I would be in trouble or even fired. But I guess I can't really fault the theater for that one. No, that one's on me. And after that, people were told not to drink at work. I almost ruined it for everyone, but there was still beer and we still drank because the place was nerve-wracking. Because of the celebrities. All coming back to you now? Whenever there were celebrities around, everyone would fucking flip out. Programmers would get all nervous and yell at the managers who were already all nervous, and they would cry in the closet because their employees were also nervous and fucking everything up because of the celebrities and because we were getting super high and feeling like really shitty because being in the same room with famous multi-millionaires is exciting for a moment and then makes you feel terribly self-conscious about your life choices and the fact that you have to make change for a star and give them their popcorn and act like you are not freaking out because customer service is already soul-crushing and makes you feel like a servant, like a have-not, like a pawn. And now you know this person, and they don't know you, which is always embarrassing. I mean, think about any time at a party when you say, "Hi, Bob," and Bob is like, "Have we met?" And you're like, "Yeah, we've known each other for 15 years. That's sort of like one half of every retail celebrity interaction. So Chris, you walk up to my register, me, drunk, stoned, dumb, you looking to buy popcorn and soda, as was your right. And I realize it's you, and I'm trying to think of something clever to say, or even just something nice. I'm making change for you, and I'm trying to remember what the most recent thing you've done is. Because I don't want to say, "Hey, I liked that rap video you made a decade ago on the internet with the guy who got way more famous than you." But it would be cool to say, "Hey, you were great in that movie that just came out." But I couldn't think of a movie. So I just handed you your money. And that's when it happened. Your face tightened. and you were mad at me and confused. My first thought was that maybe you could read my mind, and you knew that I couldn't think of your most recent project, and you got mad at me for making you feel irrelevant. And I thought, hey now, you are living the dream, Chris. We can't all be Will Ferrell. And besides, look at me. I'm 30 years old, behind a register, making minimum wage. My bosses are soon to be outed creeps, and I'm both stoned and drunk back here. Hell, when you were my age, you were on network television. My God, man, the tables were turned, and you were me. You might kill yourself tonight. So don't feel bad. And yet, indeed, you did feel bad. Something was wrong. I had offended you. You had that classic Chris Parnell pained expression. Maybe, I thought, you were performing for me. I've heard of other SNL greats like Chris Farley being unable to turn it off, a consummate entertainer. Didn't matter if he was in front of a sold-out theater or a sleeping dog in an alley. The guy was gonna put on a show. So maybe you were just doing a funny face for my benefit. Then you looked at the receipt, and somehow your face darkened further. I saw storm clouds in your eyes, and that's when I figured it out. While trying to think of something cool to say to you, I had accidentally charged you for a large soda and a large popcorn, even though you had asked for a small soda and a small popcorn. And you knew it, and you didn't say anything. And in that moment, I could have said, "Wait, did I overcharge you? I'm sorry, Mr. Parnell." But I was embarrassed, and I froze. And you were embarrassed. In fact, you were too embarrassed to haggle with me over $8 with a line of patrons behind you. And so you walked away, wondering perhaps if I had stepped all over you just because you were a celebrity, and I was taking some sort of working man's revenge against you. And in some ways I had. Although, it wasn't revenge. It wasn't even malicious. I was just nervous because I knew you, and I admired you, and so I accidentally overcharged you. And I probably pocketed that money. I'm sorry, Chris. At a similar show I was working, I once charged Sarah Silverman for a soda while she was in the middle of a comedy performance. She ran out to the concession stand and found me there, and I was starstruck and drunk and stoned. And I was also just taken by her beauty and her celebrity. And she asked for a soda, and I gave it to her. And I asked for $5. And she laughed, and then gave me the money. And a few minutes later, I realized that I should not have asked for money. I should have just given it to her because she was a performer in the middle of a show. And yet she just smiled and laughed and paid. But I don't fault you, Chris, because I probably would have acted more like you in that situation. I would have gotten all huffy and not said anything and not complained and walked away feeling stepped on. We can't all be like Sarah Silverman. No. Some of us are more like you and me. Just guys from Ohio who used to love Alex Jones and be drunk all the time. And guys who are Chris Parnell. So don't worry about that $45, Chris. I still owe you $8. Love, Brian. P.S. Can I have $37? P.P.S. You should check out my music at countrydeath.com or on Spotify.
Is it okay to ignore the war? Is it bad taste to eat off the floor? They're burning books because they already got it on Kindle. Guy on the bus crumpling pages by the pistol. Lady in the back knows that every man is sinful. The driver skipping stops says he's gotta stay on schedule. Got tens, his hand is a gun. Now he's picking off strangers, maybe we ought to run. killing time. Going for a country drive, drinking and driving till the DUI. Now you got nothing but time that needs to die. You got nothing but more time that needs to die. They're tossing blueprints of bridges into the